Jotam, thank you so much indeed for joining us once again here on Talk. As this story continues to develop, inevitably we want to find out what the latest is. What are you hearing from your government and from your politicians?
So my source tells me that the Israeli War Cabinet has agreed that the response will be painful and it will be strategic. And that the only thing that they're actually differing over is the timing. Apparently, according to other Israeli media sources, it's also been agreed on which kind of option Israel will go with. So we're looking at an imminent attack, apparently. And of course, the US is fully coordinated on this. I don't think that they'll give their consent necessarily, but they know that Israel will make the decision with or without US support. And another thing is that also Israel is almost enjoying this anxiety that the looming attack is causing inside Iran, mainly because Israel was on the edge for nearly 2 weeks after Iran threatened to retaliate for the killing of a top IRGC commander in Damascus. So the entire nation was on the edge for about 2 weeks, and now Israel is the one causing anxiety in Iran, and my source is telling me that Israel isn't shedding any tears over that.
So how do people on the street feel about this retaliation? Because assuming if there is retaliation, then that means that there will be further attacks on Israel, whereas Iran has said, as far as we're concerned, this is done, if there was no further action by Israel. So it seems to be almost self-defeating.
In a way, yes. But as we also spoke about yesterday, Israel will need to show Iran that this is unacceptable. An interesting poll actually came out earlier today that indicated that most Israelis are against a strike on Iran if it endangers Israel's coordinations or Israel's allies, its relationship with its allies. So I think a lot of people here have really realized how absolutely significant, if they had forgotten, at least now they realize how significant it is to have the United States and the United Kingdom back in Israel. So I think that's becoming increasingly clear. And that's also why we haven't seen a reckless, immediate response to this Iranian attack. But if you ask the Israelis if Iran should get away with this, absolutely not.
So another way, of course, of dealing with this would be with perhaps more punishing sanctions. Is that something that you think that the Israeli War Cabinet and indeed Israelis could support if it was tough enough?
Yeah, absolutely. War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz, who's also most likely going to be the next prime minister, according to all polls, he has now publicly called on sanctions to be imposed on Iran. He said he spoke with the Biden administration about this. We also heard the European Union saying that they're ready to strengthen sanctions on Iran. And also Israel's foreign minister, Israel Katz, has spoken to 32 foreign ministers, where he not only calls on them to sanction Iran, but also calls on them to prescribe the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Now, were all of those countries to do that and isolate Iran even more than they are now, I think that would help Israel to not retaliate as strongly as some of the cabinet ministers probably want to.
Now, let me talk a little bit about what this latest action and what this latest news has done. It's obviously taken Gaza off the news headlines, both presumably where you are and also around the world. What exactly is the latest in terms of what the Israeli Defense Force is doing in Gaza? Have they continued their operations?
Yeah, they continue their much more limited operations. They keep assassinating Hamas commanders. They keep operating, but they only have one real battalion in there right now. They pulled out most of their troops, and all of them left southern Gaza. But the defense minister has now ordered the military to be prepared to go into Rafah, that southernmost city where 1.5 million civilians are sheltering. And the city that we spoke about for months, because that was the main focus on the whole war. So now Israel is preparing, and it's preparing because Hamas yet again rejected another ceasefire proposal by Israel. This is the 5th time in a row that Hamas has dismissed the ceasefire proposal. So Israel knows that it's just a matter of time before they'll have to go in and go hard in Rafah.
So there is clearly, though, an important PR job to be done here by the Israelis, which perhaps they're not winning in a number of regards, certainly on the world stage. Just so that we understand what messaging perhaps they should be giving, why don't we perhaps delve into the mind of Netanyahu? What is he thinking? Is he thinking, on Iran. I've been telling you for years that Iran is a threat. Now is our chance to deal with it. And is he also saying through his actions and the IDF's work in Gaza, again, that he's been telling you about this for years? Nobody on the international stage has allowed us to get on with it. And again, this is our chance to neuter this for once and for all, or at least for a generation. Is that what's going through his mind?
I think what's going through his mind is how he stays in power. Nobody can deny that Netanyahu's policies towards Hamas and towards Iran have failed utterly. If we start with Hamas, he allowed millions of dollars to go from Qatar into Hamas and Gaza. He allowed Hamas to be strengthened at the detriment to the Palestinian Authority, because an internal rift between Hamas and Palestinian Authority was in his interests, because he didn't want to see a united Palestinian people. Now, that has failed utterly. Hamas is strong, and they launched October the 7th, which completely surprised Israel. When it comes to Iran, Iran is clearly not deterred. Netanyahu has been the prime minister for decades, and he has not been able to deter Iran. The fact that they fired 350 missiles and drones at Israel tells you everything you need to know about his policies towards Iran. Now, one last thing. He is benefiting from this horrific situation, because he went from being a pariah, or Israel went from being a pariah in the past couple of months to now having the backing of all of its allies, and he's got a carte blanche to do something with Iran. So he's actually in a pretty okay situation, considering how much he's failed.
Jotam Confino, foreign editor of Jewish News, live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here.